I would like to bring the warmest fraternal greetings from the Socialist Equality Party in the United States to our comrades in the SEP of Australia and to all the workers and young people who are attending this critical conference today. Most of all, I'd like to express my solidarity with the candidates of the SEP in Australia who have fought to break the conspiracy of silence of the media and all the bourgeois parties, Liberal, Labour, and the Greens, over the perilous dangers the people of Australia and Asia confront due to the provocative military operations of the Obama administration and the Pentagon in the South China Sea. 71 years after American imperialism demonstrated its capacity for mass homicide in the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which would be followed by the bloody yet unsuccessful colonial adventures in Korea and Vietnam, the U.S. is threatening to drag the people of the world's most populous region into an unthinkable nightmare of war against nuclear-armed China. Such a venture appears to the masses of people around the world as utter madness. But the preparations for war, including the various geopolitical think tanks in the United States, which call for a, quote, winnable nuclear war, arises from the deep economic and political crisis of American imperialism, which over the last 25 years has sought to offset its economic decline in its world position by resorting to military violence to secure resources and markets and to block the emergence of potential rivals. As the ancient proverb says, those whom the gods would destroy, they first drive mad. In the U.S. elections as well, the great unmentionable is war, precisely because there is no popular support for it, after endless wars that stretch back not just to the advent of the so-called War on Terror in 2001, but a quarter of a century to the first Gulf War of 1991. The presumptive presidential candidates of both big business parties, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, are committed to escalating the military incursions of U.S. imperialism in the Middle East and against China and Russia. Clinton, who is presented as the so-called lesser of two evils compared to the openly fascistic Trump, supported the war in Iraq in 2003. As Secretary of State under Obama, she laid the groundwork for the fascist coup in Ukraine and oversaw the bloody operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, which have destroyed those societies and created the worst refugee crisis since World War II. Clinton boasts of far closer ties to the military intelligence apparatus than Trump, and is acknowledged to be even more hawkish than Obama, who spent his entire tenure waging wars, conducting drone strikes, and holding weekly meetings with the CIA to discuss a kill list of potential assassinations. As for Trump, he has sought to tap into the mass disaffection with the American political system and the lack of economic security facing millions of working people in order to channel this social anger down the reactionary road of anti-immigrant chauvinism, particularly against Mexicans and Muslims. It is no surprise that Trump hailed the British vote to leave the EU, which followed an incessant campaign by both the Leave and the Remain camps to scapegoat immigrants and refugees fleeing war. The worldwide stock sell-off following the Brexit vote, which wiped out some $2 trillion in value in one day, is the latest blow to the world capitalist economy, already mired in slump, a depression in commodity prices, and mass unemployment and poverty. In every country, the ruling classes are resorting to the promotion of nationalism and war, even as they institute austerity measures that further enrich the corporate and financial oligarchies. The same fundamental contradictions of capitalism that lead to war between global economy and the outmoded nation-state system, and the collective production of society's wealth by the working class versus the private ownership of the means of production, is sparking the reemergence of the class struggle in every country, from the mass protests in France to the teacher protests in Mexico and several strikes in the United States, including the 7-week Verizon telecom strike. The reemergence of the class struggle in the United States, long suppressed by the nationalist and pro-capitalist trade unions, makes clear that the American capitalist class, which is trying to rule the world, is increasingly unable to rule its own house. The immense levels of social inequality in America, which have only worsened under Obama, are fueling increasing militancy in the working class and a historic political radicalization of workers and youth. In a country where socialism has long been proscribed and anti-communism functioned as a virtual secular state religion, 13 million people were eager to vote for someone who called himself a democratic socialist, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. He won the votes of the vast majority of young people who polls show increasingly favor socialism over capitalism. But Sanders is not a socialist. He is a Democrat, and his chief role has been to maintain opposition within this party of Wall Street and the Pentagon. Just yesterday, Sanders said he would vote for Clinton, and he is undergoing the difficult process of trying to convince his supporters to back a warmonger and the personification of the political status quo. Yet the opposition that is building up in the United States and around the world will not be contained. It can and must find independent political expression. The election campaigns of the International Committee of the Fourth International in Australia, in Germany, in the United States are not primarily aimed at getting votes, but of laying the political infrastructure, building the political leadership for the developing mass opposition to war, inequality, and dictatorship and the world capitalist system. In opposition to the poisonous nationalism and militarist intrigues of all the imperialist powers and capitalist regimes, workers of all countries must form the closest bonds of unity. Comrades and friends, we live in dangerous times, times of war and repression. We have complex and difficult tasks before us, but we proceed with the confidence that the international working class, united in struggle, will prove itself stronger than the warmongers and conspirators and will succeed in charting a course towards a world free of war and inequality. I urge you to join the Socialist Equality Party in Australia and to help build the International Committee of the Fourth International, the World Party of Socialist Revolution. Thank you.